Hi guys, today I am refurbishing this faded pink Game Boy Advance that I ordered from Japan. From the outside, it doesn't look too bad. It's a little McNasty in the nooks and crevices. But other than that, everything looks reusable. The battery cover is missing, and the screws look a little bit old, but there's no erosion along the battery contacts, which is a great sign. This should be an easy fix-up, fingers crossed. Now I'm gonna take some AA batteries to see if the Game Boy will turn on. And that's a no. Sometimes if it's just dusty and dirty and grimy, if you fiddle with the batteries, it can turn on. So let's try that. I'm gonna put this cover on just in case, it might help. And that's a no. So it's time to pop this baby open and see what we're working with. Right now I'm just getting my tools ready. You'll need isopropyl alcohol, a scrub brush, tweezers, cotton swabs, cotton balls, a microfiber cloth, and a tri-wing screwdriver kit, along with some other stuff if you want. There are 7 screws on the outside and 3 on the inside. Make sure to keep the outside and inside screws separate. Right now I'm just taking the outside screws out. Don't forget the one in the battery pack. It's usually black and it's a smaller screw than the rest. Upon opening, I saw lots of dust accumulated in the inside. You can kind of see it in the inside of the battery pack there, and then lots of dust on the motherboard and dust bunnies. This is when you want to wear gloves. I do not have gloves on this part, but as you will soon see, I regret it. But I'm also wearing a mask because I have a sensitive nose, and with old consoles from the 2000s, you just never know what can happen. See that the motherboard has a lot of flux sweat as well, and I'm taking off the buttons and whatnot. All of this, along with the shell, will get a nice hot bath of dish soap, water, and peroxide, and it can all be reused. I could have used it for this project, but today I'll be using a new shell and new buttons that I bought just because I wanted to try out something new. One thing you want to make sure you do after taking the 3 screws out is to click these 2 little knobs here right by the ribbon cable. You want to do that to loosen up the ribbon cable. That thing is very, very sensitive and you do not want to rip it. It's connected to the screen, so if it is damaged in any way during this process, you'll have to purchase a whole new screen for your Game Boy Advance. And the screen is probably one of the most expensive parts that you can buy, so make sure to baby that thing. Just inspecting the motherboard and noticing that there's a lot of dust in the speaker and also around the buttons, as that's more exposed to the outside, so it tends to be where the dust and nasty stuff accumulates. It looks like the person that previously owned this liked to eat Cheetos or something when they were playing with their game. So very nasty. Definitely wear gloves, and you'll see I'll get my gloves on after I saw that McNastiness. So now I'm going to be taking off the screen. With the Game Boy Advance, this is not for all vintage consoles. With the Game Boy Advance, you could be a little bit more rough with this and kind of just twist the plastic back and forth, rock it back and forth. Still want to be a little gentle, but you want to twist it until the adhesive kind of separates from the screen. And then once you can get a finger or something in between the plastic and the screen, you could just peel it right off like so. This screen looks immaculate. There's no sun damage or anything like that. Perfect condition. So I'm gonna use this. I'm not gonna do any backlighting or anything for this project, but with the shell that I will be using, you can definitely do that. Now I am going to start cleaning the motherboard. I'm just dipping my brush in the isopropyl alcohol and scrubbing everything, getting every nook and cranny. Take your time with this part, and just make sure that everything is clean, all the dust is gone, all the nasty flux sweat, just everything. I also like to saturate the little sound wheel, just to kind of get that super squeaky, and the on-off switch, I'll usually take a Q-tip swab and saturate it in alcohol, and then try to get as much alcohol inside of the switch, and then just move it back and forth to kind of clean any dust that might have accumulated in there. Before I flip my motherboard over that I just cleaned, I'm cleaning my workstation from all the dust that may have fell out. I don't want anything to be on the motherboard after I cleaned it. Now I'm just taking what I like to call the nipples out, and these things are what trigger the L and R buttons. So I'm taking those out, and I'm gonna put some alcohol in there as well before I put the nipples back in. Now I'm just scrubbing the other side and under the speaker as well, don't forget that. The speaker does have a magnet, so it does tend to attract dust and dirt and grime, and it gets stuck in there. So what you want to do is take a cotton swab that's saturated in alcohol, and then you just want to go around it in circles, and you'll see that eventually the dirt and dust will collect, but you might need to do this a few times. I like to take my time at this part. It's so nasty, but this is the most satisfying part, or one of the satisfying parts of this whole thing. Now I'm just cleaning off the nips, and I'm gonna place them back in to their homes. They can be a little tricky, but you want to put them in at an angle. I used tweezers here to push it in, but you can use your hands. Just taking off any dust from the screen itself, little dust particles. I didn't want to use anything that's too harsh because, again, I want to make sure that I don't damage the screen. Now it's time for the fun part. I had these two new shells. I have this minty color, and I wanted to do like a monochromatic look, but I think I'm going to do that for another project. I think I'm going to go with this translucent black. I think it's super cool, and I'm just trying to see what buttons I want to use. This is an aftermarket shell, but it's great quality. I have no complaints. I can't even tell really, besides the coloring, that it's aftermarket. It's a very great quality. And I ended up going with this glass cover here. Most of the covers are plastic and they do scratch easily, but with the glass one, it's just super clear and super high quality. It also has an iridescent logo, so it's super fancy pants if you ask me. Because this is an aftermarket shell and glass, it is a little bit wider than the usual glass, because a lot of people, when modding their Game Boy Advances, will put new LCD screens inside or backlit screens. I personally did not do that, so there will be a little bit showing from the screen. There's going to be a little outline, but I can always go back and change the screen at some point. I just cleaned the conductors from the original Game Boy. If you remember, these were super dusty and nasty. I just washed them in hot water, soap, dish soap, and a little bit of peroxide, and I scrubbed them really good with a brush. And now I'm just really giving some love to these conductors here with a little alcohol. You want to mattify them because you want them to be super accurate when you're pressing the buttons. And it's super easy, so you can see how mattified it gets once you go in with the alcohol. And now I'm just going to place them over the buttons, just putting everything in place to see how it looks. You might notice as well that I purchased a little purple ring to go around the speaker. I think it's just a really nice detail. It's definitely not necessary, but if you're gonna have a translucent shell, it's nice to have those little details like that. The adhesive that I was applying around the edge of the shell, that can be super annoying to place it back in. That basically is gonna be the adhesive that sticks your screen to the shell, and you just want to make sure that it's not showing. So make sure if you're going to place the adhesive back in that you take a look from the front before putting your screen in, just to make sure that it's not showing. Now it's time to place in the motherboard. So when doing this, you want to just make sure that the speaker is aligned, and then of course the ribbon cable is put into place, and then you just click down those little arms to keep the ribbon cable in place. And don't forget to put the 3 screws back in. Once everything's in nicely, I like to pick it up from my hands because the buttons, when it's laid on a flat surface, it can't push up everything. So I like to hold it in my hands and make sure everything's pushed down as it should be. And now I'm just putting in the other details, the little bumpers, the L and R button, and the on-off switch button. Make sure that the on-off switch button is in the same area as the actual switch connected to the motherboard. I'm just putting in all of the outside screws. We're almost done. I forgot to show here is I did add a sticker on the back, the Game Boy Advance sticker with serial number that came with the shell. It just makes it look super official. now's the moment of truth. Let's see if it turns on. I'm just gonna clean it with a little bit of multi-purpose cleaner, make it super shiny and dust free. And it works. So this baby was just a little dusty and dirty, nothing wrong with it, which is great. Now let's test all the buttons out. I'm gonna put in Pokemon Yellow version, which is one of my favorites. I'm gonna put in the Pokemon Yellow version, which is one of my favorite games. Super cute. And we're just going to use this game to see how the buttons respond, make sure everything's working correctly. Looks like everything is working beautifully. So that's that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I really like how it turned out. It looks badass. Thank you.